What's up, guys? I'm Matt Reisinger.
Steve Basic.
We are at Steve's 150-year-old renovation project. What do we got here, Steve?
So, 1870s. They were out here hammering this thing together, and now a shoreline builder's problem.
I just took a tour, guys. This house is really cool. 1870s, married to brand new construction, and I love how it really, when it's all done, it's gonna feel like an old house that got added onto over the years. We're in a historic district in a really cool neighborhood outside of Boston. Let's get going. All right, Steve, front door, and I walk in, and this feels like a really old house when you walk in. Super cramped foyer, some tight staircase. What do you got going on here?
Steep stairs, the kiddie newel post that,
tiny.
probably 28, 30 inches.
Yep.
The balustrade there, but this was America, right? You come in, a lot of houses are center loaded. This one here, a lot of times they load it to the right, so there's two windows to balance it out, but you come in and this was the mudroom, the entry, everything, the greeting space, we're standing in it.
That's cool. And these boards are actually the original 1870s, like 1x12 or something?
Those are 1870s, the studs, the wall sheathing, all of this stuff. I'm always amazed when I come through here. You walk around and it's like the last guy that put that board down put it down in 1870.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Nailed that down just thinking, hey, I'm just doing my job today.
And check that out. I found that on the job. Little old school, some old school cut nails.
Cut spike.
And that's what they were using to nail down these, subfloor basically back then.
And it's one thing to look at the nail, but imagine being the guy. Remember, those were these little hammers with the wooden handle.
Yeah.
Those guys are pounding the hell out of it trying to get that spike into the floor.
That's pretty wild. Now, as we walk into the house, I think you mentioned earlier, was this the original flooring, or was this still subfloor at this point here?
This was the original floor that they put down, but like any story, there's floors that go on top of this, there's nail holes, it's just, you can see the original wall system.
And you told me Jim planed this down, didn't you?
Yeah, so these are a couple of the floorboards that Jim pulled up, and then he ran them through the planer. But, I mean, you look at that growth, you're probably talking like 50 years in an inch.
Look how tight that is.
But you have to remember, this is a board that was placed here 170 years ago, and it was probably cut. This is heart pine that was probably cut from a 400 or 500-year-old tree. So you're holding a 600-year-old piece of wood in your hand.
This is a 14 or 1500s tree right here.
Yeah,
someone
put a tree up here, 500-600 years ago and said, hey, someday it'll grow up, and it became flooring.
That's unbelievable. God bless America. We got some really pretty old houses like this. Now, you've got a bunch of additions happening here, and I don't know if we can fly the drone in this weather, but if you could fly the drone, you'd see that you've got projections here and out the back, and the house kind of undulates. Talk to me about the story of the architecture.
So there's two things at play. One, the Historic Commission, this front corner here can be visibly seen from the street. So that's what the Historic Commission, when they place concerns on, it's what do I see from the street?
Yeah.
You can put almost anything in back, even though we want to be respectful of what we're doing. But that front corner, they want to be able to drive up and say, oh, that's the old Adams house or the old Bailey house or whatever. And then they want to see a story unfold around it.
Got it.
And so a lot of these spaces, when you're designing these, it's I won't say it's a more expensive approach, but it does get a little more costly because you end up putting these appendages. Because originally, New England houses where somebody built a house that might have been 20 by 30, 2 rooms. Then they had a kid, so they put a new bedroom on. Then they had another kid, so they went upstairs and like carved out a bedroom or whatever. But the story is that the house grew with the family, and then eventually got attached to the barn or whatever. And so they want that storybook line.
I like that, and that makes the house more interesting and doesn't just feel like, I heard Jim say earlier when we were touring, it doesn't feel like the house just has this big appendage stuck on the back of the house.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really easy to come in and say, 24 by 30 house, we'll just do another 24 by 40 addition off the back, 3-car garage, whatever.
Yep.
But it doesn't add to the character. The other thing is hopefully we get you back here, in 6 or 7 months, and we'll tour, but you'll get a feel for just all the nooks and crannies of these spaces that really makes New England New England.
I like that. Talk to me about the framing. I'm seeing a bunch of lumber cisternon. I'm seeing steel. I saw some LVLs in the other room. Jim and the team did a lot of additional framing here, didn't they?
They did a ton of work, and as you can see, they do exceptional work. But I've been in this business 30 years, and I'm still trying to figure out, do we overbuild today or did we underbuild yesterday? And because this house, we had floor joists that flew 18 feet here. All of these that got sistered up went the full span. Mm-hmm. They're probably about 20, 22 inches on center, and they're a real 2x6.
Oh my gosh. 2x6 is 22 inches on center.
And they had some sag in them, yes, but the structural engineer came here and said, oh no, we got to cut that. We got to put in a beam here now and cut that span in half and sister it. So it's like these joists now are literally doing about a quarter to a fifth of the work they were doing before. But that's, where we are in today's world.
And over here, you actually double sistered these joists.
In here, we double sistered it, and you can see we had a new bearing wall added there. And then at the stair frame, we just threw a couple double LVLs in there to help stiffen up that floor system. But you can see the windows are literally just suspended in the wall.
Yeah.
Back
no header, nothing really.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Just, the timber frame goes around. And
our friend Brent would love to see that you guys are reusing all these windows and just going to kind of work them and remodel them back to working again.
I always have this kind of thought that there's knowledge and wisdom. Like Jim has wisdom because he's been doing this so long, and wisdom will tell him, we don't throw anything away until the end of the project. Because you never know where we might come around a corner and say, you know what, we could put that window in the corner of the pantry, or why don't we reuse that window over here because it's facing that side of the house or something. So, Jim's good. No floorboards, nothing. He cleans up all the boards.
Keeps them all stacked over right here.
That could become the bench in the mudroom. So we continue that story, and that's, what Jim as a New England builder wants to do too.
And of course, this is something that every builder's seen on the build show before, but like he's got his job board here, he's got his first aid kit, he's got his fire extinguisher, he's got a desk going that he can have the plans at all times, he's got a place to put tools down. Let's go upstairs and show these guys the cool framing that's going on up there. Oh man, this space is really cool, Steve. I like this. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so this is the original house, right? You can see it's all balloon framed. So everything comes up.
Okay, so those joists are coming straight through.
Those joists,
the studs are coming straight through.
But you can see there's a window there downstairs. There's a window over there. And you can see the center post. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but this is a metal connector where they'll put it at mid-span of the wall just to keep that center of the wall from bowing out.
Interesting. I haven't seen that.
So it's a little lateral brace.
And then check out this crazy roof framing you did.
Yeah, these were anywhere from 2x4 to 2x6, roughly like 18 to maybe 26 inches on center.
Wow.
So the structural engineer came up here and just said, we got to...
Super light framing.
We got to beef it up.
Now, these look like they're 3 inches thick, though, maybe, instead of 2 inches.
Yeah, they might be. They're definitely up there. I mean, back then, this stuff was probably cut at a mill a few miles from here.
Yeah, and some horse and carriage brought it over to the framers or to the builder. There was no framers back then. There was just builders.
What's interesting is even doing these, houses... There's stories that unfold that you ask why. Like we can look at this window here. It's fully suspended. There's no flashing, nothing. But if we go to the windows on the exact opposite side of the house, those are two in metal pans. Weird. So it's like, why did they do that in metal pans and why did they not do it here?
I wonder if it's directionally facing.
There was an old roof there, so my suspicion is they were really cautious about the wind-driven rain coming up the roof, where this was, in the plane of the wall. But
interesting. And check this out. You've got almost like a 4x4 embedded in the wall on this gable in a few places, and next to some, old school 2x4s, the true 2-inch by 4-inch. Mm-hmm. Pretty wild to see the difference.
And some of the framing doesn't even go past.
Yeah, it didn't even go up.
It was crazy.
That's pretty wild.
And one thing I was surprised is a lot of times we'll see like lateral bracing, diagonal bracing let into the wall, but we didn't see any of that here. But like Jim will tell you, we've worked on houses, you can go up the street, you know, a quarter of a mile, tear apart a house, and it's framed totally different.
That's wild.
It's just whoever that crew was that built the house, built it their way.
And there's like a 6x6 looking top plate that they used on this balloon framing.
Yeah. So that was that main wall frame that they stood up, and then that carried the roof.
And is it typical to see this kind of solid
sheathing? Board sheathing. That's pretty typical.
And that's not shiplap. That's probably just
yeah, it's just regular board sheathing right on there.
1x8 or something.
Call your attention. You see the chain hoist down there. Mm-hmm. So Jim and his son Taylor, who also works at Shoreline Builders, they use the chain hoist. They put that 23-foot beam in themselves. So it was a 1,000-foot beam.
Oh,
they cut a small hole in the floor. They got an eye bolt that was rated for 2,000 or 1,000 pounds. They hooked the chain hoist to it, and then they just sat there and pulled the chain and lifted a 1,000-pound beam into place.
Smart builder right there. That's pretty cool. I love to see that Taylor, the second generation, is coming on with his dad.
Yeah.
And then this is a really neat architectural design where you've got this original roof coming into this additional space.
So we have to cut in. This will be all new master suite. We'll have the two original bedrooms will go there. We're going to insert a new bathroom for them. But everything from pretty much where we walk through, all this new spaces, bedroom, closet, bathroom, and some utility space.
That's cool. And for me as a Texas guy, I never see strapping. I know it's super common for you in New England, but tell us just briefly, for those of you watching this who haven't seen strapping, why do you do this in New England? What's the benefit?
So my understanding was, you know, when you're using solid sawn lumber that tends to want to move, shrink, etc., you change the direction by putting in the furring strip, and it takes a little bit of the wow out of that shrinkage and movement.
Got it. It's holding it together a little bit.
Yeah, because you're kind of disconnecting the drywall from the main frame and putting it on the subframe.
And does that allow the electrician then to run in that raceway his wires and not have to drill through all those solid joists?
If we took that out, the electricians would be pissed, the plumbers will be pissed. They'll run their PEX under there. They'll run their electrical wires. Yeah, you take that out, all of a sudden it's like, what are you doing? And now I got to drill. Imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense though. It's going to stiffen it. It's going to reduce the need to drill, which would weaken. And now you potentially have a flatter ceiling because you could run a laser or a string line and get those straps and kind of shim them as necessary.
Yeah. And what's interesting too about the furring strip, I'll migrate it to places that don't use it a lot because we'll just use 1x4s. But the beauty is if you're in a location that does roof trusses, you could take the 24-inch on center and then switch it to a 16 or a 12-inch center by using the furring strips. And where does that matter? Well, in some of my houses, we'll do 30 inches of blown cellulose up there.
Yeah.
So we'll put 6,000 pounds of cellulose in the attic.
Cow.
So you need that strength to hold the drywall up and hold it in place.
That makes sense. Steve, talk to me about the insulation air sealing strategy. I look around this house and I'm seeing 150-year-old sheathing, then I'm seeing some brand new zip system here. What do you do to insulate and air seal an old house like this?
Yeah, and here we have the zip system is going to be our primary air barrier. This is a really shallow roof, so we're probably going to move towards a hot roof, where in our location here means about 4 inches of closed cell.
Okay.
We're sensitive to the closed cell we use. You know, there's some people that have an aversion to it. This homeowner doesn't, so. And then we'll fill the rest with either an open cell or, you know, sometimes in the walls we'll use a rock wool bat or something. We'll probably splash those walls. Just the board sheathing is the wind blows through that wall.
Oh yeah, you got to have something as an air barrier there.
We'll do a quick splash and then put a 3-inch or 3.5-inch rock wool bat in there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but at least an inch of closed cell is going to give you an air barrier, right? Or do you need 2 inches of closed cell?
No, an inch of closed cell, especially in a 2x4 wall. What you're trying to do is you're trying to elevate that dew point temperature for the first condensing surface. So in a 3-inch wall, you're at the 30% rule is what I use. So 3-inch wall, come in an inch, inch and a half. We're in that 30% mark.
So 30% of the wall
30%
depth.
thermally. Not measured, 30% thermally. So if you have an R15 and then an R7, you're at R32, but we're in that 30% range.
Got it. Oh, that's really smart. Cool. Let's go downstairs and I'd love to catch up with Taylor and Jim who are down there. We'll see you downstairs.
All right, Matt. So here's the garage. So, you know, doing these houses, even though the original house is 150 years old, people still want to park their cars in a garage. They want to be able to walk in the house from their garage, and they want all the amenities of today. So as an architect, that's kind of one of the tricks is I'm trying to satisfy the Historic Commission, trying to make it easy and work with Jim to build right, but then the homeowner has their dreams of this old antique house that still does everything a house does today.
In today's modern world.
In today's modern world.
And speaking of modern world, check out that framing going on. You got a 4-ply, I don't know what that is, 20 inch
Those
deep.
are 24 inch.
24 inch deep.
Yeah, that's, Jim reminds me, that's probably about $3,500 worth of wood beams.
That is
right there.
heavy. Interesting to see you've gone to solid floor joists here. Not a very long span. Obviously, Jim did a real nice job using the Advantech glue. I'm seeing the runoff right there on his Advantech subfloor. But we were talking about this earlier. Talk to me about Jim's floor squeak protection plan on those solid joists.
So again, wisdom versus knowledge, right? You get a few callbacks, you realize, what do I have to do to not have these callbacks? So what Jim does is all of these floor joists, he has the framer hold them short, maybe about 3/16, quarter inch. And that's exactly what the joist hanger is off of that.
Yep.
But by holding them short of that beam, allows them to move with shrinkage inside, and they're not only short this way, they're positive to the beam a little. So the Advantech doesn't touch the beam. If you look up there, you can actually see a space that goes up over the beam. So the beam can move, the joist can move, but no wood is ever rubbing against the wood, and the subfloor is never settling
That's really
on
smart.
top of that beam. So everything has the ability to change dimensions slightly without affecting something else.
Yeah, and if you look at those hangers, you notice there's a space, there's a little gap between the bottom of the hanger, so you've got full seating depth on those floor joists, 2x10s or whatever they are, and they're of course nailed in with all your correct hanger nails. So we don't have any structural issues there, but I bet someone's going to comment. That
Oh yeah, somebody's
they
gonna say,
should've
oh,
cut
it should
this
be tight and all this stuff, but you know, whatever. But one of the things that you don't see here that I think is certainly worth noting is we switched to 2x10s. These are short spans. We're talking maybe about 12 feet here. So there wasn't really a sense to have to buy a more expensive I-joist here.
Makes sense.
But the other thing of note here is this whole ceiling will get 2 inches of rigid insulation get placed underneath the joist. So those will all get packed tight with cellulose. Then we'll put 2 inches of rigid insulation, and then we'll put our 5/8 inch drywall here. And the reason for that is that there's a space above there, and we're in New England. This is pretty much outdoor space.
That is easy.
So I have to treat that floor just like I would treat a wall. So if I put exterior insulating sheathing on the wall, it's exterior insulating sheathing, it's just on the floor plane.
It's really smart. Yeah, treat your walls like your floor, like your roof. Yeah, love it. Let's go down and see Jim and Taylor, shall we? I think they're in this basement
They're down
space.
here. Yeah, so I think these guys are down here, Matt.
Oh, we got a tight ceiling down here, Steve. Watch your head. Hey, Jim, Taylor.
Fridge.
Hey, how you doing, man? What a cool project, guys. Looking really good.
So Jim, owner of Shoreline, Taylor, his son, co-owner of Shoreline. So next generation, it's awesome to see dad and son.
Yes, it is.
For those of you that follow me, you probably know my first project I ever did as an architect was with Jim, almost 30 years ago.
That's pretty cool.
So we have a long-standing relationship, and I don't think we've never even raised a voice at each other in 30 years.
That's
We
fantastic.
get along really well. We accommodate each other very well. Sometimes Jim had reason to be frustrated, but Jim's an awesome guy. So
I suspect on this project you needed Jim to take it where you couldn't at times, including like what I'm seeing in this basement. As you pan around, I'm seeing new foundation walls, old foundation walls, steel posts, wood posts, new framing, old framing. There's a lot going on here, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big puzzle. So.
And talk to me about what you had to do to kind of keep the old foundation where you needed to.
yeah, and I mean it's things like even in the early plans, like that was meant to get cut back, and then Jim came down here and did some exploration. Said, hey, we got this big piece of granite, we got to leave that because it tells part of the story. So we ended up keeping a lot more of the foundation than we had originally planned, but you know, a project like this, you know, unfortunately, it's not a new builder kind of project. You don't like do decks and stuff and then say, oh, I'm gonna do this $1 million antique remodel, because you're gonna get lost in the details. The homeowner is very fortunate to have these two guys, because they're thinking on their feet all the time. You know, hey, Steve wants these joists to go all the way. We can't take them all the way because the mud sill's 4 inches higher. So we'll head this off. They'll call. We'll get the structural engineer to give us a beam, and tomorrow they're putting a new beam in, and we alter the floor framing.
That's really smart. So you're talking about this right here, where I'm seeing this OVL come across. That was Jim's call on the job.
That was Jim's call here, to stop the framing, not take it all the way to the outside wall, to provide access so we can insulate that band joist area, but it makes the framer's job. Because the other thing too is, you don't want to pay a framer down here, you know, by the hour to sit here and nitpick each joist and custom cut them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. And that's a good tip too, is remember, bring those engineers in when you need them hourly to check those things, right, Jim? Because that was something that you could have probably figured it out, but you're going to need that engineer to give you a stamp and make sure the city knows that you did it correctly and to current codes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hey Jim, tell me about how you married the new foundation to the rubble over here, because you got this corner right here that's got brand new concrete, but this is old, isn't it? This is the original to the house.
Yeah, and on the plans that turned the corner. This foundation originally went another 20 feet, so we were going to leave about 4 feet of that to create some structure to bring the new foundation into, but as we were dismantling it, it wasn't cooperating too well. So we did everything we could to, you can see a huge rock up here, big chunk of granite, so we were able to support that from the outside while we were excavating and leave that intact. And then we just formed right around all the rest of it.
That's pretty cool. And was this curb? This looks like old concrete.
That was there originally. This was like a laundry room in the old part of the house. So somebody had come down here and put that curb in to probably re-support the foundation that was here. And it looks like they had some kind of PT frame that was built down here, probably as a floor system to, you know, probably this thing took a lot of water in at one point.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Coming through, and that's why they parched the walls.
And then you've got I-joists in this section that I haven't seen before. Is this flange a standard flange, Steve, or is this something that you can only get in New England?
Yeah, no, you can get these all around. Most I-joist manufacturers have, you know, a different series of joists. So these come in typically 1.5 inches, 2.5 inches, and these are the 3.5 inches. This is a full 2x4 top and bottom cord. So you get probably an extra 15% capacity by moving from the 2.5 to the 3.5 inch cord.
Interesting, that's cool. And plenty of surface to work with, but also pretty shallow depth. These look like
these are
they're
9.5.
They're 9.5, yeah. Well, let's go check out the old floor framing in this section. Taylor, tell me about what you did for framing here. I'm seeing this, looks like a tiny 2x6 floor joist, but then you've sistered, and what's going on with this here?
Yeah, so I jacked up the old joist. I got the sag out. I sistered a 2x10 in here, and then we have to have a double hanger here, and I didn't want a big gap here, so we took some old studs out of the part that we demoed. We cut a 10-inch block so that it bears fully on this hanger.
And was it hard to get that hanger to work with the thicker original 2-inch material, or
no? So they actually they make hangers that's if they're sistered, so it's 1.5 inches and full 2 inches. So
is that right?
Yeah.
That's a true hanger that's straight from them.
Yep.
I had no idea they made that.
Yeah.
I guess that's a New England special right there. And then this looks like new framing here, and these columns, these are obviously new, I guess, too, right?
Yep, they're all new. We added two 2x6s to get a flatter surface, and we put lolly columns down into nice thick footings with some nice bearing plates on top to hold this beam. This beam originally had a 2.5 inch sag in it,
Did it
18
really?
feet, so we got that all out. Floor is nice and flat above.
Wow.
Here, you guys keep talking. I'm gonna go get us a prop.
Yeah, so what was here before these lolly columns?
So we had some lovely cedar columns, some trees they cut out of the forest.
Is
We
that
actually
right?
saved all of them over here.
True cedar columns
True
down
cedar
here when you
columns.
arrived. And what were they bearing on? Did they have big footings down here or what?
Just dirt, sitting right on the dirt.
Oh, look at that.
Hey, there you go.
That's awesome.
For sale, 150-year-old lolly column.
Oh my
Slightly
god.
used.
Slightly used.
Slightly used and slightly rotted. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Was it hard to dig these footers in this tiny space down here?
Not at all. It's nice virgin ground, nice sandy. There's an inch rat slab we just easily chipped up and dug away.
A 1-inch rat slab, hardly anything down here, so that is no big deal at all.
Nothing.
And then what side, did you have to do a giant footer with a bunch of rebar for all these columns?
Yeah, we did 24 inch and a couple layers of gridded rebar.
Okay.
It's about 16 inches deep.
And were you able to get a concrete chute through one of the windows, or how did you get the concrete down here?
We had the chute coming down here and we were pouring the floor, and then we had a nice ramp with a wheelbarrow.
Okay, there you go, and that does it. Speaking of concrete, Taylor, talk to me about that giant boat anchor of concrete in the corner. What are we looking at over there?
Well, that lovely piece of concrete is, we had to pop the footing up so that when we dug out, we did not disturb the original foundation. As you can see, the plaster holding the front together is kind of cracking. So we hopped the footer up, and then we poured a nice big slab in the back to hold that footing in place. And then we didn't want this wall to come apart, so we poured another thick piece of concrete to hold it all together.
Huh, it's like a buttress on the end there that's just holding everything together,
Holding it all
basically,
together.
huh? And it's interesting, is it kind of U-shaped around there too? So it's kind of holding it in place,
It's a giant horseshoe.
keeping the lateral movement. And what's the extra dog leg for? Did you say that already? I missed it. What's the extra smaller leg for down there?
So we were excavating, if we kept going, that foundation, it's nice flat in the front, but then it tapers off about 3 feet.
Ah.
So if we dug that all out, that foundation's holding up 2 stories. It's gonna collapse, not be good. So we hopped it up to 4 feet, and then we poured a huge concrete block around it to hold that footing in place.
Interesting. And that was all, did you say that was all granite, Jim? All that foundation rubble that we're seeing there?
Oh, yeah. It's all local granite.
Which is all pretty common around here. I even see granite curbs in some of these neighborhoods. I guess that's all locally poured granite.
Yep.
Which is super strong.
I mean, this is the stuff that came out of the farmers' fields, and they stacked it up and used it for foundation material.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything, Steve, down here? There's some cool stuff down here. I feel like we're on a This Old House episode.
Yeah, no, this is. I mean, this is
an old house
for sure. I mean, it's you know, I commend the client first of all for taking on the project, because obviously you incur some costs bringing an antique back to life.
Yeah, for sure.
And we need houses like this to carry on our story. I mean,
Yes.
it's nice down in Texas to go down and see all this new construction. But you know, as we drove in the historic district here,
I mean, this is like, there's some stuff from the war. you
yeah,
know, from the-
1740s. We drove by that house, you know, pre-revolution house, and it's nice that there's clients. There's nice that there's builders like Jim and Taylor that are willing to take on these projects, because these aren't easy projects.
No.
There's head scratching, there's swearing. You know, it all comes with the package.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Impressive work, guys. Really impressive. Guys, I'll put a link to Shoreline. And of course, if you're not following Steve, you should be following his Instagram feed. He just hit 50,000 subscribers on the IG feed. And I know a ton of you watching this are watching his weekly videos on buildshownetwork.com. But so fun to get over here to New England and see these old houses when Steve's right, it's so new. In Texas, where I come from, I love seeing these old buildings, and to think about the builder that put these floor joists in 150 years ago, this decking that probably came from the lumber yard down the street. It's pretty cool stuff. Guys, if you're not currently a subscriber, hit that subscribe button below. You know, we've got new content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow us on TikTok or Instagram, otherwise we'll see you next time on The Build Show.